Welcome back to the my broadcast, The Intentions of the Heart, well, where we will be addressing what type of diet is your prophet on. This is part two, and I would highly suggest that you go back and look at part one. We will be discussing in this section the details of the spiritual diet that you should be able to discern and recognize that a true prophet should be operating on. And the diet that I'm referring to is a spiritual diet, their regiment, because the word says you shall know them by their fruit along with what they feed their spirits on. So just be mindful. True prophets have to have a reverential fear of God. One of the scriptures that you need to be correlating that reverential fear is through Isaiah, the prophet of Isaiah, and chapter 58, verses 16 through 14. And it's really talking about how to loose the bonds of the wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, to break every yoke, to share the burden of your bread with the hungry, to take care of the poor, and to cover those who are in need. If they do not have that type of discernment or even a mandate with regards to even Isaiah 61, which is to preach those good tidings, to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim the liberty, to open up the prison doors, and to help those that are mourning, to give beauty for ashes, and a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. This gives you an understanding the thread of their hearts. So be watchful in seeking prophets to give you a prophecy, like those who want their palms read, horoscopes, tarot cards, and any other forms of divination and witchcraft, and they are prophesying to you about houses, about cars, about your business or financial gain. And a lot of things have been emphasized with prophetic marriages. This is your divine spouse. All of these things can get into a place of exploitation. These false prophets have an audacity. One of the key things that you need to look at that's considered a red flag is when they are offering you a word, but then after they speak that word over your life, they have the audacity to be seeking monetary gain through like their cash apps. This is not scriptural. There is not one scripture in the entire Bible where a prophet was paid to give a word. And that needs to be repeated, and you need to marinate on that, because Jesus never took an offering in exchange for his word. What's really relevant, if you think about Elisha and when he was healing, Naaman and he had leprosy, and his servant was Gehazi. And Gehazi went back to Naaman after Elisha healed him with leprosy. He went back to get money. So those are the kinds of things that you need to be mindful. Anything that is exchanged in that way from a prophetic nature, and you're trying to gain monetary gain from that, that's a red flag. So that's a sidebar that you need to be mindful, because there are grave ramifications and operating in the spirit of divination, which is really just a lying spirit. You're opening up demonic portals that come with certain kinds of consequences. And let me explain one of the things that happened to me almost 30 plus years ago, when I was ignorant, unaware of the ramifications of tarot cards and palm reading. I had went to a Renaissance festival, and I had allowed a woman to read my palms. Now, I exchanged with her $20, and she told me what was considered to be my future. At the time I was married, he is currently my ex-husband, and I was told, because I did this specifically, that he had 2 children that he was unaware of. And that, unbeknownst to us, was true. But here's what you need to understand. That word was not prophetic. That word was demonic. It was opening up a portal and a spiritual dimension. They did not tell me the future because the children had already been born. The reason why they had access to information that they should not have been privy to is because I exchanged a monetary exchange through a divination spirit that allowed them to read and tap into a portal to give me information that I wasn't aware of. So just know that you've been warned, we've been warned, and we need to continue understanding that we are to stop sitting under leadership, stop sitting under people, stop seeking out YouTube videos, Facebook, social media platforms to get a prophecy. One of the things that you need to understand that doing that will cause and lead to iniquity. You need to study Ezekiel chapter 14. And the verse that I'm really referring to is 9 and 10. And I'm going to read it in the Amplified version. And it states, because if a prophet who speaks without my authority is enticed to speak a word of his own, it is I, the Lord, who has caused that prophet to speak falsely, to please the inquirer, thus allowing himself to be a party to the inquirer's sin. And I will stretch out my hand against him and destroy him from among my people Israel. They both will be a bearer. They both, will bear the punishment of their wickedness. The sin of their counterfeit prophet will be the same as the sin of the hypocritical inquirer. Now think about the story of Gehazi. It was hypocritical for Gehazi to come back to Naaman after he left, when Elijah had healed him, and say that I now want this money. Because what you have to realize, Naaman offered Elisha money for healing him in a prophetic nature, and he knew not to take that money. But yet Gehazi, his servant, came back to get money. So you will get the same reward seeking divination that the person that is giving you that lying spirit, because then Gehazi received leprosy, and it was a curse not only to him, but to his generation, to his bloodline. So in order to not be deceived by any false prophet, you must identify the authenticity by testing the spirits of those claiming to speak on the behalf of God. Just stop and pause and ask yourself, when someone starts to speak over your life, you need to say to yourself, and even to them directly if need be, who sent you? What is it that you want, and under whose authority are you authorized to speak in my life? Here's what you have to know about witches, false prophets, people that have a lying spirit. They do not recognize and acknowledge the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I want to be clear when I say that. They might admit that Jesus exists. They won't claim him as the Lord. They'll talk about the universe. They'll talk about the law of attraction. They'll weave around, but they will not put all three together. You need to understand it is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, so that you're not deceived, because they know scriptures. They can quote scriptures. So I need you to just kind of let that marinate. And as we get back, I'll come back and discuss in the next part of identifying the spiritual diet and what those characteristics should look like. So take care and be blessed.